Democratic State Representative Rick Miera announced at the end of the legislative session that he would step down after 24 years as a lawmaker, despite the fact that he became majority leader in the most recent session. Miera dedicated much of his political life to issues of educational equity, juvenile justice, and access to health care. NMIF correspondent Gwyneth Dolan talked with Miera about his favorite accomplishments and what he feels he left unfinished in his political career.
Representative Rick Miera, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
You've spent 24 years in the state legislature and you just became majority leader this past session. Why are you quitting now?
Because 24 years, that was the way you started was the appropriate question. It's been 24 years. I've had a great time. It's been wonderful. I've enjoyed every second of it. I enjoy it right now. But it's just time that I think there was time for somebody else to have as much fun as I've been having. I think it's time for somebody else to do public service. And this is the appropriate time. They always say, time to leave when you're on a high, and I'm really on a high on this particular issue, and I've enjoyed every second of it. Time to leave, time for someone else to do it.
When you look back on the 24 years, what do you think of as your greatest accomplishments?
That's wonderful. That's a great question. I think more than a couple of issues. One, of course, was education, because I've worked so long on education. It's what we were able to stop as well as how much we were to do. So there were a lot of bad bills that I think we were able to put together and say, this is not where New Mexico needs to be at this point in time, so we stopped that.
You stopped bad things from happening.
We stopped bad things from happening. And then at the same time, we were able to move forward. One of the other ones was the DWI issue. When I came on early in the 90s, I was the co-chair with the senator from Grants Gallup area, and we put together some of the first issues that we're still dealing with right now, DWI, but the early bills were my bills and her bills, and we together, like closing down the drive-up liquor windows, .08. I carried that bill in a long time ago. You'd think that was not a big issue, but it was. People were like, oh my goodness, .08, you're crazy, you're going to pull that bill? But we were able to get that bill through. It's become, just standard operating procedures. It should be, and many other issues having to do with DWI. So from that perspective, and then for just my district, District 11, the downtown area, the ability to be able to work collectively with the neighborhood associations, with the neighborhoods, and move in a direction that's taken years. As you can, even today, it's a big issue about what are we going to do about downtown. But we've really changed that whole idea of what it's like to live downtown and work downtown, and what it's like for the rest of the state, for Albuquerque to have a vibrant downtown area. All wonderful things that I have, and I could just go on forever. 24 years worth.
Downtown has changed a lot. I mean, just over the past 15 years, But what do you feel like you're leaving unfinished?
Oh, that's a very good question. What I'm leaving unfinished is, of course, the educational issues as to exactly where are we going to go next, and what do we do to move in direction of taking care of the individuals we need to care about the most, and mental health issues. I started out, as we were talking about prior to us talking here, I came from the Department of Psychiatry. Mental health is a huge issue for me, and I carried many, many pieces of legislation, one that unfortunately I still want to see happen because of what's happened just in the last couple of days as we have this session.
And what was that proposal?
Well, it passed unanimously in the House, one vote against it in the Senate, and that is that we used to do this at the Mental Health Center just down the street from where we're at right here on the station, and that is when you have individuals who need help, you send out professionals to take care of the issues. And we used to do that on a regular basis. Myself, a social worker, a nurse, and a doctor, we'd go make a home visit. Standard operating procedure in those days in the 80s. And we would talk these individuals into coming in for help or taking their medications or whatever else might happen. And that bill passed because we wanted to do it again. The police were supportive of that bill. The state police stood on the floor of the House with me and said, this is what we should be doing. We moved in that direction. We got it there. Unfortunately, the governor vetoed it because she said that I put it under Human Services when I should have put it under a different agency. I think we could take care of that, but I think as we move in this direction, those are the issues that still haven't been resolved. We still have mental health issues. People still don't understand the constraints that people with mental illness have, families have, And it's the same with education. I think there are people that have a lot of problems with education. Kids aren't making it in school.
Well, let me ask you about that.
Yeah.
You know, despite the enormous amount of money that we spend on education and all the time and effort that everyone has put in, we still have more than half of New Mexico high school graduates who have to take remedial classes in college, and that cost us $22 million last year. What are we not doing?
What's missing, I think, is the engagement of the child, for lack of a better word, or the adult as we move into 12th grade, 11th, 12th grade. I think we're still missing that engagement. I think when individuals want to come to school, there's something there for them, and it's not just this issue of adults thinking, this is the best thing for you, let's go here, let's move in that direction. Where is it? And I work with children and young adolescents all my life, so I know that with involvement in mental health or involvement in school, it's still the same. We want them to say, we're part of this. What's missing, I still believe, is that adults are making a lot of decisions for children, and adults are making a lot of decisions, bad sometimes, that what's best in the interest of the adult and not what's best interest of the child.
If you could wave a magic wand and make 3 changes to what we're doing in education right now, you wouldn't have to wrangle any votes. You wouldn't have to get the governor to sign it. You could just do whatever you wanted. 3 quick changes. What would you do?
First of all, and this is going to sound so simplistic, it doesn't make sense, but first of all, I wouldn't have the school hours that we have right now. Most of the time, they've been telling us for years, kids don't wake up until a certain amount of time. We put kids on the block in the morning, at 6 o'clock in the morning, so they can catch a 7 o'clock bus for a 0-hour class. I mean, that's just not getting kids involved in the classes. Second of all, you know, we move them into the evening. Let's have individuals have the opportunity to utilize those great big beautiful buildings that sit empty sometimes, unfortunately, from 3 o'clock until the next morning at 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 when they open them up again.
So number
Too
1,
simple.
don't make the kids go to school so early.
Don't make the kids go to school so early, and don't put those buses out so early. I mean, this is what I'm talking about, talking with them, obviously, is engagement. I want to go to school. You know, it's not like a pain. It's not something I hate. I want to move in that direction. Second of all, parents need to feel more and more comfortable that that school belongs to them. I think most do, not enough, and that's that percentage that miss. That school belongs to them. It belongs to the community. All the important issues that we know of as the school down the street, the gym, the computers, the library, all those have to be open at all times to the individuals. We paid for them. It's no need for them to sit there. And I know there's a lot of reasons why they don't happen.
We have this competing pressure of security and who are we going to let
Exactly,
into
and-
schools.
Yeah, and who's going to maintain it and things of that nature. I think all those should be overcome with the idea of what's more important, getting the kids in school and making them stay there. And having the family involvement is so important. You hear this so many times. And I think the third one is the community needs to understand that all this does take an investment. I didn't say money, but it takes an investment of all the community, the county, the city, the state needs to say that we are all a part of this. And this isn't just left to the public education department. This isn't just APS's problem.
So speaking of the PED, you introduced a proposal last session to get rid of the PED and go back to the system we used to have of having an elected board of education. It's only been 11 years. What happened?
Well, historically, if you look at that, we've been doing that for years and years. About every 12, 20 years, we change it back again. It used to be this way, then we have the appointment, then we have the elected, and the nation is the same way. Nationally, states have some people that you elect as to be the state superintendent. They run for election like a politician does. They have others as we have. We elect a board, and the board elects them. And then we have what we have now. We have a secretary, and the governor appoints a secretary.
Is this about the secretary? Is this about Hannah Skandera?
This is not about Hannah Skandera. This is about 2 secretaries that we've already had. And the whole idea was, in this particular issue, and maybe even in the governor before that, we were, and I was part of that involvement, we're going to change this because it's an appointment from the governor, and the governor needs to take some responsibility, and all this responsibility falls on the governor. What I found with the last 2 is that once that happened, it wasn't a matter of responsibility, it was a matter of blame. It's somebody else's fault.
If you had an elected Board of Education instead of a secretary or a secretary designate, how would that change things for students? How would that change things at all?
Well, going back to what I talked about, that involvement, maybe I think too highly of all of the individuals that I represent, but I really believe that we get involved and those people were elected by, the board would be elected by, from throughout the state, that they would go back and hold those people responsible. Local school boards, state elected school boards, I think some have responsibility to their constituents.
Speaking of this sort of system of checks and balances that we have, Governor Martinez recently said that she wanted all requests from legislative oversight committees to go through her chief of staff, Keith Gardner, for his approval. You criticized this in the paper the other day. What do you think about it?
Highly criticized is a good word, and I feel comfortable about saying that. Oh, come on. What is the most important issue, whether you're in business, private business, or you're in the community business, and that is information. What you have is what you're able to work with. And for somebody to say, we're going to limit you, or we're going to decide what information you're going to have, when you're going to have it, or if you're going to have it, really holds back the individual at the other end. And since we're talking about branches of government that should be equal.
Checks and balances.
Should be equal branches of government. One can't say, you know what, we're going to limit the amount of information that you have. It shouldn't be one way or the other way. We should have an opportunity for everyone to have information, whether it's the judiciary, that's the executive, or the legislative. Why should one have an opportunity to say, oh, we're not going to let you know? That puts us at a disadvantage if you're the legislative branch.
Well, the legislative leadership last year made a move to keep their emails secret from the public. Is this not on par with that?
No, not even close to it. Emails that I get from you asking me to take something care of you, whether it's a personal issue, a family issue, that's what legislators do. Is that going to be available to the general public? That's not even close.
But the governor might say, we're talking about emails between you and a lobbyist, or emails between you and another lawmaker, discussing a bill.
I think that's an issue that is between a client and their if you're in the judiciary benefit, a client and the person that they're working with. That's not even close to what we're talking about here. The governor is saying, you know what, I want information from Human Services, how many children are being treated, how many people are getting services, how many people are in schools.
Are these existing documents or things you're asking them to compile?
Could be either or both. But why should we say, you know what, I don't know if we're going to give you how many kids are at one particular school district. We'll decide and we'll see if we're going to filter that and we'll let it go to somebody else and then somebody else will tell you whether or not you should. That should be public information to anybody. I don't think we're asking them to come up with something that is an issue far beyond their ability to come up with that. But I think that one was really strong, and I felt very bad about that. They put us at a disadvantage, especially during election year, when we need to know what's going on, regardless of who's running and who's not. We need to have that information. Legislators need to have that information at all times, whether it's Human Services, PED, or the Department of Transportation. We need to know.
One last question.
Sure.
You've been there 24 years, but you were a young man when you started, and you're still a young man.
Thank you.
What are you going to do once your responsibilities are over at the end of the year?
I've always been, thank you for that question, but I've always felt that my job is to help out the community, and so I'm certainly going to continue to do that. You've heard us say many people, but
You're supposed to say I'm going to Disneyland.
Oh, no, I mean, I've been to Disneyland, been there and done that, but the neighborhood still is going to need some support and services. I'm still going to be there. I'm just going to try something else, but I really meant to, somebody else should have the opportunity to do what I had to do because I was elected, but I wanted to do. Somebody else should have that opportunity to do. It's been fun for me. It's going to be fun for them. Fun in that funny sort of way that we just talked about, that it's a lot of work. Fun that's a lot of work.
Representative Miera, thank you so much for being with us.